A town in Brooklyn vanished. Not burned down, not torn down. For almost 40 years, New York treated it like it had never existed. Here's the strange part. It was still there, the whole time. And once you start looking, you find towns like it, all over America. Number 10, Brooklyn, New York. Walk into the Weeksville Heritage Center in Brooklyn today, and you're standing inside 4 wooden houses that somehow survived modern Brooklyn. In 1838, a black longshoreman named James Weeks bought a plot of land nearby and built one of the largest free black communities in pre-Civil War America. Over 500 property owners at its peak, according to the National Trust for Historic Preservation. It had its own newspaper, an orphanage, an old-age home, and the state's first black female physician. New York didn't burn Weeksville down. Nobody needed to. Urban renewal just stopped drawing it on the maps, stopped writing it into the records, stopped mentioning it existed. Then in 1968, a professor named James Hurley is flying over Brooklyn, cross-checking old maps for a class he's about to teach. Through the window, past Bergen Street, 4 wooden houses that have no business being there, boxed in by streets that grew up around them without ever touching them. One of them still has a family living inside it. For over 100 years, nobody destroyed Weeksville. They just stopped looking for it, which turned out to be the harder thing to undo. Number 9, Nicodemus, Kansas. Drive into town today, and you'll pass more empty foundations than people. 14 people live here, not 1,400. 14. That's fewer people than fit in one subway car, running an entire national historic site, the last remaining all-black town west of the Mississippi, founded during Reconstruction. It wasn't a flood. It wasn't a fire. Nicodemus lost its population 1 train line at a time. The railroad picked a different town 6 miles east in 1888, and everyone eventually followed the tracks. No single event killed this place. It just kept losing people to whichever town got the railroad, the highway, the next opportunity, decade after decade, until there was almost nobody left to lose. Once a year, the streets fill up anyway. Descendants drive in from Chicago, Denver, Los Angeles for homecoming. And for one weekend, a town of 14 people hosts a few thousand. The railroad never came back. Neither did most of the people. Number 8, Boley, Oklahoma. Walk down Pecan Street today, and the bank is still standing. Windows boarded, doors locked, empty since the 1960s. In 1911, Booker T. Washington called this the wealthiest Negro town in America. Population then, over 4,000. In 1932, 3 men from the Barker Karpus gang tried to rob that same bank. The bank's president was shot and killed. A bank employee came out of the safe with a gun and returned fire. Only one of the 3 robbers walked away. Population today, officially, 1,087. Except that number includes the inmates of the state prison built on the edge of town. The actual civilian population is closer to 500 or 600. The census form doesn't ask who's free to leave and who isn't. It just counts bodies inside the city limits. Number 7, Mound Bayou, Mississippi. Drive past the Taborian Hospital today, and there's an Art Deco sign that's still waiting for patients since 1983. The doors are locked. Across the street, a convenience store does more business in an afternoon than the hospital ever will again. Theodore Roosevelt called this town the Jewel of the Delta. Founded in 1887 by formerly enslaved people, Mound Bayou ran its own bank, its own hospital, its own newspaper. No outside money, no outside permission. The cotton economy that built this town just isn't hiring anymore, and there's no replacement industry standing in line. Today, poverty sits above 46%. The buildings are still there. The economy that supported them isn't, but nothing on this list fought harder to still exist than the town coming up last. Number 6, Eatonville, Florida. This town looks almost exactly like it did in 1887, the year it became the oldest incorporated black municipality in the country and the childhood home of Zora Neale Hurston. About 2,350 people live there today, and unlike almost everywhere else on this list, that number isn't falling. Last year, the town fought off a development push that would have swallowed its historic core into somebody else's zoning map, and won, on the record, in a public vote. And yet, here it still is, wedged inside Orlando's sprawl, throwing its Hurston Festival every year like nothing outside the town line exists. The only entry on this list where staying frozen was a choice, not a slow accident. Number 5. Hobson City, Alabama. This town still runs its own park today, Booker T. Washington Park, with a pool, a tennis court, a bowling alley, built by the town for the town, because the town next door never let them use its own. Hobson City exists because Oxford, Alabama redrew its borders in 1899 specifically to cut black voters out of the map. So black residents built a whole separate town instead, out of spite and necessity in equal measure. 733 people live there today, and that number keeps dropping. Streetlights and road repairs are the kind of budget line the town has to fight for every year. Not assume. Founded out of exclusion. Kept alive by stubbornness. Not great, also not new. Number 4. Brooklyn, Illinois. Underneath the pulpit at Quinn Chapel, there's still a trapdoor. Lift it, and there's a hiding space runaway slaves used on the way to freedom, sitting exactly where it sat. Since the 1830s. Before Hobson City, before Boley, before any of the others. Brooklyn, Illinois. Founded in 1829 by 11 formerly enslaved families led by a woman named Priscilla Baltimore, later incorporated as the oldest black incorporated town in the United States. Locals still call it Lovejoy, after an abolitionist newspaper editor murdered by a pro-slavery mob 3 miles away in 1837. Today, a third of its 649 residents live below the poverty line. The oldest black town in America is also one of its poorest. Nobody planned that irony. It just happened, slowly, over 150 years. The same slow math that shows up on almost every entry on this list, just running at a different speed each time. Number 3. Rentiesville, Oklahoma. This town has one business left, a blues club running out of a converted grocery store. And once a year, that's the only thing that matters. Historian John Hope Franklin was born here. Only 107 people live here now. Once a year, the Dusk to Dawn Blues Festival brings in more people over one weekend than live here across the entire year. A town of 107 people running sound checks for a crowd it can't otherwise imagine. Rentiesville isn't trying to grow back. It's just trying to keep the lights on for one more festival, one more year, however long that turns out to be. Number 2. Allensworth, California. Colonel Allen Allensworth built the only California town ever founded, financed, and governed entirely by Black Americans. Within a few years, it had its own school district, its own library, its own train depot. The company that sold Allensworth its land promised to drill water wells for the town. They built those wells in the white town next door instead. The railroad promised Allensworth a stop of its own. It moved that stop to the same white town, too. Allensworth didn't dry up on its own. Not neglect, sabotage. Walk through Allensworth today, and it's a state historic park. You can tour the schoolhouse. You can stand in the exact spot where the water was supposed to be. Nobody lives here anymore. Number 1. Princeville, North Carolina. The church bells still ring here, over a town that's rebuilt the exact same streets more than a dozen times. Princeville was chartered in 1865 as Freedom Hill, the oldest town in America chartered by African Americans. It sits on the one piece of land its founders were allowed to have, a floodplain along the Tar River that nobody else wanted. It has flooded, seriously, more than a dozen times since, worse and worse each time the river decided to show up. Hurricane Floyd in 1999 put the entire town underwater and nearly got it voted out of existence in favor of a government buyout. Residents voted to rebuild instead. Hurricane Matthew flooded it again in 2016. They rebuilt again. 1,254 people still live here today, all on the same floodplain nobody else wanted, in 1865. Every generation has rebuilt Princeville. The question is, how many more generations still can?